The transmission crackled through the void of space, reaching Earth's orbital defense stations at exactly 1432 GMT on a Tuesday that would forever change the course of human history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood frozen in the command center of Luna Base, her coffee mug halfway to her lips as the alien voice filled the room. The voice was cold, mechanical, translated through their universal communication protocols. Primitive species of the third planet. You have been judged. Your world possesses resources we require. You have 72 of your rotations to evacuate. Resistance will result in complete annihilation. The transmission ended. Silence fell over the command center like a heavy blanket. Did they just give us an eviction notice? Whispered Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, his hands still poised. Over the communications console, Admiral Chen set down her mug with deliberate care. At 55, she had seen 3 colonial wars, the Mars Rebellion and the Jupiter mining conflicts. But this was different. Get me President Zhang on secure channel, she ordered, her voice steady despite the ice in her veins. And wake up the Joint Chiefs, all of them. On the main display, long-range sensors showed them, hundreds of ships each the size of a small city, arranged in perfect formation just beyond Pluto's orbit. The Hegemony Fleet, as they called themselves. Sleek, angular vessels that looked like they had been carved from black glass and starlight. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the base's xenobiologist, pulled up her analysis on a secondary screen. Based on their fleet composition and the energy signatures we're detecting, they're expecting this to be easy. Look at this. She highlighted several ship types. Those are mining vessels, resource extractors. They're not bringing an invasion force, they're bringing a demolition crew. 72 hours, muttered Commander James Park, the tactical officer. They really think we'll just leave? Admiral Chen turned to face her team. These people, her people, had families on Earth, children playing in parks, lovers sharing morning coffee, elderly parents tending gardens, billions of humans going about their lives completely unaware that aliens had just declared their home planet condemned. They don't know us very well, do they? Chen said quietly. The secure channel crackled to life. President Zhang's face appeared, on screen, flanked by the Joint Chiefs and the heads of every major spacefaring nation. Sarah, tell me this is some kind of elaborate drill, President Zhang said, though her expression showed she already knew the truth. I wish I could, madam. President, they're real, they're here, and they want us gone. General Morrison, head of Earth Defense Command, leaned forward. What are we looking at in terms of firepower? Dr. Vasquez spoke up. From our scans, each of their capital ships carries enough destructive power to crack a moon. They have energy, shields we've never seen before. And their technology appears to be several centuries ahead of ours. So we're outgunned, President Zhang said. Massively, Chen confirmed. What are our options? Admiral Chen looked around the room at her team. Rodriguez, barely 25, with a photo of his newborn daughter taped to his console. Park, the tactical genius who had never lost a war game simulation. Dr. Vasquez, who had dedicated her life to the possibility of finding life among the stars, though probably not like this. We have one advantage they don't know about, Chen said slowly. Which is? Chen's smile was cold as winter on Titan. They think we're primitive. They think we're weak. They've studied our broadcasts, our technology, our apparent limitations. She paused. But they haven't studied our history. The silence stretched for a long moment. Explain, President Zhang said. Every species that has ever underestimated humanity has learned the same lesson, Madam President. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest or the smartest or the most advanced. Chen's voice grew harder. But we are the most stubborn, vindictive, and creatively violent species that has ever existed. And we really, really don't like bullies. She turned to her communications officer. Rodriguez, send a reply to the Hegemony Fleet. What should I tell them, Admiral? Chen's smile widened. Tell them, thank you for the warning, and that we'll be waiting. The transmission went out across the void. On the hegemony command ship, a creature with too many eyes and not enough compassion read the human response and made what would prove to be a fatal mistake. It laughed. But hidden throughout the solar system, in asteroid mining stations, deep space research posts, and classified military installations, humanity began to wake up. And when humanity wakes up angry, the universe tends to pay attention. The 72-hour countdown began. Chapter 2. The Human Response. 60 hours remained. The Sol system had transformed into a hive of activity that would have been impossible to imagine just days before. Every military installation, every civilian station, every asteroid mining rig and deep space research facility was mobilizing with a speed that defied logistics. Captain Maria Santos gripped the armrests of her command chair as her destroyer, the Rising Phoenix, joined the growing fleet near Mars. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, but she could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. "Captain," called out her weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Bradley. "We're receiving tactical updates from Fleet Command. They want us to implement something called Protocol Omega." Santos frowned. In her 15 years of service, she'd never heard of Protocol Omega. "Put it on my personal screen." As she read, her eyebrows climbed higher and higher. "Sweet mother of..." She looked up at her crew. "People, we're about to find out what happens when you back Earth into a corner." Meanwhile, in the deep asteroid belt, something that officially didn't exist was powering up for the first time in decades. Dr. Michael Chang floated in the zero-gravity laboratory aboard Station Vanguard, one of humanity's most classified research facilities. Around him, his team of physicists and engineers worked frantically to complete modifications to devices that had been theoretical just 72 hours ago. "Status report," Chang called out. "Quantum entanglement communicators are synchronized," reported Dr. Amy Foster. "We can coordinate simultaneous strikes across the entire system now, regardless of light speed delays. Gravitational manipulation drives are at 60% capacity," added Dr. Boris Petrov. "We can move asteroids now, big ones." Chang nodded grimly. The human race had always been good at three things: problem-solving, adaptation, and warfare. When all three combined, his console chimed with an incoming message from an asteroid mining station in the belt. The message was simple: "The rocks are ready to dance." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Chen stood before a holographic display showing the entire solar system. Red dots marked hegemony positions, blue dots marked human assets. But there were also purple dots, thousands of them, scattered throughout the system. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez said, reviewing the latest intelligence reports, "we've intercepted more of their communications. They're confused." "How so?" "They're having trouble understanding why we haven't started evacuation procedures. Their psychological profiles of humanity are based on our entertainment broadcasts and diplomatic communications. They expected panic, surrender, or desperate negotiations." Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. "Instead, we've gone dark on all civilian channels and activated military protocols they can't decrypt. They're starting to realize they might have made a mistake." "Good," Chen said. "Let them wonder." The purple dots on her display represented something the hegemony couldn't possibly understand: human civilians, mining crews, research teams, colonists, and corporate employees who had not evacuated, despite having every opportunity to do so. Instead, they had volunteered for something that military historians would later call the most audacious defensive strategy in galactic history. On Europa Station, Jack Morrison, no relation to the general, was explaining the plan to his teenage daughter over a quantum-encrypted video call. "Dad, this is insane," Lisa said, her face tight with worry on the screen. "You're not soldiers. You're ice miners." Jack looked around at his crew of 30. They were ice miners, it was true. Men and women who had spent years learning how to harvest frozen water from one of the most dangerous environments in the solar system. They were also about to become something else entirely. "Sweetheart," Jack said gently, "your great-great-grandfather fought in World War III. Before that, his grandfather fought in World War II. Morrison men have always stood up when bullies came calling. But Dad? No buts, kiddo. These aliens want to take our home. They want to take your home. They think we're soft because we try to solve problems with words first. His expression hardened. Time to show them what happens when words don't work. Around the solar system, similar conversations were taking place. Families saying goodbye, civilians taking up arms, researchers abandoning pure science for applied destruction. Humanity had been given 72 hours to evacuate their world. Instead, they had spent 72 hours getting ready for war. Oterdu Chapter 3. The battle begins, 12 hours remained. The Hegemony Fleet Commander, a being known as Archon Zek-Thul, studied the tactical displays in his command center with growing unease. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded to ultimatums with silence. Status report. He commanded in the clicking, chittering language of his people. His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Vexhai, manipulated the holographic display. The human world shows no signs of evacuation. Their military assets have taken defensive positions throughout their system, but their numbers remain insignificant. And their communications? Completely encrypted on all military channels. Civilian. Broadcasts have gone dark. It's as if their entire species has simply vanished from our sensors. Archon Zek-Thul's 4 eyes narrowed. Something felt wrong. In all his conquests, primitive species followed predictable patterns. Panic, desperate negotiations, futile military posturing, then surrender. The humans had skipped directly to futile military posturing and then nothing. Perhaps they have accepted their fate, suggested Sub-Commander Vexhai. Perhaps. But Zek-Thul's instincts, honed by decades of conquest, whispered otherwise. On the bridge of the Rising Phoenix, Captain Santos received the final tactical briefing from Admiral Chen. The plan was insane. It was also, Santos had to admit, brilliantly human. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," came the voice over the fleet communication system. "In 30 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy something they've never seen before. Today, we don't fight just for Earth. We fight for every species that's ever been told they're too primitive to matter." Santos looked around her bridge. Young faces mostly. Kids who had joined the space fleet hoping to explore the stars, not to fight for humanity's survival. Now they would do both. "You heard the Admiral," Santos announced. "All stations prepare for combat. And remember, today, we're not just representing the human colonial navy. We're representing every underdog in the galaxy." The countdown reached 0. What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for generations to come. The first sign that something was wrong came when Archon Zek-Thul's sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies throughout the asteroid belt. Before he could order an investigation, his communications officer began shrieking in panic. "Archon, the asteroids, they're moving." On the main display, the asteroid belt, which had been a scattered collection of rocks and ice for billions of years, suddenly came alive. Dozens of massive asteroids, some kilometers wide, began accelerating toward the Hegemony fleet with impossible precision. "Evasive maneuvers," Zek-Thul commanded. But the asteroids weren't random projectiles. Each one had been equipped with human-designed guidance systems, powered by fusion drives that had been hidden within mining equipment. What's more, they were coordinated through quantum entanglement communicators, allowing them to adjust their trajectories in real time. The first asteroid struck a Hegemony destroyer with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The ship's shields held, but barely. The second asteroid was different. As it approached another destroyer, it split apart, revealing that it had been hollowed out and packed with mining explosives. Thousands of tons of them. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. Sub-Commander Vexhai stared at the tactical display in horror. They weaponized their asteroid belt, the entire asteroid belt. But that was only the beginning. "New contacts," screamed the sensor officer. "Ships decloaking throughout the system." What appeared on the sensors defied explanation. They weren't military vessels. Not exactly. They were mining ships, research vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian transports. but each one had been modified in ways that no sane military strategist would consider. A mining vessel that should have been carrying ice suddenly opened fire with drilling lasers that had been overcharged to military-grade intensity. A cargo hauler released a cloud of what sensors identified as refined metallic dust, which immediately began interfering with hegemony targeting systems. On Europa Station, Jack Morrison and his crew put their plan into action. Their ice mining laser, designed to cut through kilometers of frozen water, had been recalibrated for a different target. As a hegemony cruiser passed within range, the mining laser punched through its shields like they were made of paper. "Target destroyed," Jack reported calmly to Admiral Chen. "Morrison mining crew ready for Target 2. Throughout the system, similar reports flooded in. Civilian installations that should have been defenseless were revealing themselves to be anything but. Research stations unveiled experimental weapons. Corporate mining rigs deployed military-grade defenses. Even the luxury passenger liner Stellar Princess, which had been ferrying wealthy tourists to the outer planets, suddenly bristled with concealed weapon systems. Archon Zekthul finally understood what he was facing, and the realization filled him with something he hadn't felt in centuries: fear. These weren't just soldiers fighting for their world. This was an entire civilization that had transformed itself into a weapon. "All ships, implement bombardment protocol," he commanded. "Destroy their homeworld now before—" His order was cut short as space around his command ship suddenly filled with small, fast-moving objects. Thousands of them. "Drones," Sub-Commander Vex High reported. "Where did they come from?" The answer came from Admiral Chen's voice, broadcast on all frequencies. "Every human ship, station, and facility in this system carries manufacturing equipment. In the past 72 hours, we've produced approximately 50,000 combat drones. Consider this our official response to your ultimatum." The drones swarmed the hegemony fleet like angry insects. Individually, they were no match for alien technology. Collectively, they were overwhelming. They attacked in coordinated waves, targeting specific systems, communications arrays, sensor nodes, weapon hardpoints. As his flagship shuddered under drone attacks, Archon Zekthul made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his very short life. All ships target the third planet. If we cannot have their resources, no one will. Chapter 4. What We Really Are. The order went out across the hegemony fleet. Destroy Earth. Every ship that could bring weapons to bear on humanity's homeworld began charging their planet-killing armaments. On Luna Base, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The trap was almost complete. "All ships Phase 2 is authorized," she announced. What happened next had never been attempted in the history of warfare, human or otherwise. Every human vessel in the system, military, civilian, commercial, research, and mining, suddenly moved, in perfect synchronization. But they weren't attacking the hegemony fleet. They were positioning themselves between the alien ships and Earth. Thousands of vessels, from massive battle cruisers to tiny single-person mining pods, formed a protective sphere around humanity's homeworld. They were vastly outnumbered, they were outgunned. By every military calculation, they were about to be obliterated. Instead, something impossible happened. Dr. Chang's voice crackled across the fleet communications. "Quantum field generators are online. All ships, synchronize your drives." The sphere of human ships began to glow with an energy signature that made the hegemony sensors scream warnings. Every human vessel was equipped with the same basic technology: fusion drives for propulsion. What the aliens hadn't realized was that human scientists had spent the last 72 hours linking all of those drives into a single massive quantum field generator. "Sub-Commander," whispered the hegemony sensor officer, "the energy readings from their formation, they're impossible." Archon Zekthul stared at the tactical display as the human fleet's energy signature climbed higher and higher. "What are they doing?" His answer came from Admiral Chen's final transmission. "You wanted to know what we really are? We are the species that looked at the speed of light and said, 'That's just a suggestion.' We are the people who saw an empty universe and decided to fill it. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for 1,000,000 years. And we said, thank you for making us stronger. The energy field around Earth reached critical mass. You declared war on Earth, Chen continued. But Earth isn't just a planet, it's an idea. It's the idea that intelligence and determination can overcome any obstacle. It's the idea that cooperation is stronger than conquest. It's the idea that every species deserves a chance to reach for the stars. Space around Earth began to shift. You can destroy our ships, you can blast our world to atoms, but you cannot destroy what we represent. And today, you're going to learn why we've never met a problem we couldn't solve. The quantum field reached full power. The sphere of human ships, from the largest battlecruiser to the smallest mining pod, simply vanished. For a moment, the hegemony fleet found itself alone in space, their weapons still charged and aimed at a seemingly defenseless Earth. Then the human fleet reappeared, directly behind the hegemony formation. What Dr. Chang and his team had accomplished in 72 hours was nothing less than the practical application of quantum tunnel jumping, instantaneous teleportation across vast distances. Every human ship had vanished from in front of Earth and rematerialized in perfect attack formation behind their enemies. The Battle of Sol lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it was over, the hegemony fleet was scattered wreckage drifting through the void. A few ships managed to escape, limping away at sublight speeds with crews who would carry word of what they had witnessed to every corner of the galaxy. On Luna Base, Admiral Chen stood before the tactical display, watching the last alien vessel disappear beyond the heliopause. Around her, her staff worked quietly to coordinate rescue and recovery operations. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez said softly, we've got incoming transmissions from 17 different alien governments. They all want to talk. Chen smiled. I bet they do. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her xenobiology station. The hegemony survivors are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're calling us, well, the translation is a bit rough, but it, roughly, means the species that weaponizes everything. Is that accurate? Asked Commander Park. Chen considered the question. In the past 72 hours, humanity had weaponized asteroids, mining equipment, cargo haulers, tourist ships, research stations, manufacturing facilities, and the fundamental forces of quantum physics itself. Yeah, she said finally. That sounds about right. She looked out the viewport at Earth, hanging in space like a blue marble, completely undamaged, despite having been the target of a planet-killing alien fleet just hours before. Send a message to all those alien governments, Chen ordered. Tell them that Earth is open for diplomatic relations. Tell them we're a peaceful species that prefers negotiation to conflict. And if they ask about what happened here today? Chen's smile was cold as space itself. Tell them that this is what happens when you threaten our home, and suggest that they consider the benefits of friendship over conquest. As the message went out to 17 alien civilizations, humanity began the long process of cleaning up the wreckage of the hegemony fleet. Much of the alien technology would be studied, reverse-engineered, and eventually integrated into human designs. But the most important outcome of the Battle of Sol wasn't technological. It was the message it sent to every would-be conqueror in the galaxy. Earth is not helpless. Earth is not weak. Earth is the home of a species that has never met a fight it wouldn't finish. And they really, really don't like bullies. Epilogue. 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen, recently promoted from Admiral, stood in the reception hall of the new Galactic Embassy on Earth, welcoming delegates from across the galaxy. The building itself was a marvel of human and alien architecture, constructed with technologies that had been unimaginable just 6 months ago. Through the massive transparasteel windows, she could see the orbital shipyards where human and alien engineers worked side by side, designing vessels that combined the best of both civilizations. The refugee ships were visible too, carrying survivors from dozens of worlds that the hegemony had conquered over the centuries, all of them seeking new homes under human protection. Ambassador Chen, called a voice behind her. She turned to see Captain Santos, now wearing the insignia of Rear Admiral, approaching with a familiar figure in tow. "Jack Morrison," Chen said warmly, extending her hand to the former ice miner. "I hear congratulations are in order." Morrison shrugged, looking uncomfortable in his new uniform as a lieutenant commander in the Colonial Defense Force. "Still getting used to the idea of being in the military, ma'am. But somebody's got to teach these alien friends of ours how we do things out here." "And how do we do things?" Chen asked with a smile. "Well," Morrison grinned, "apparently we turn everything we touch into a weapon, then use it to make friends. It's the most human thing I've ever heard of." Through the embassy's communication system, a pleasant chime indicated another arrival. Chen's aide announced, "The Kethvar delegation has arrived, Ambassador. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent research colony in the outer system." Chen nodded. The Kethvar were the 7th species to request permission to settle in the Sol system in the past month. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy. If you wanted protection from bullies, you allied yourself with humanity. As she prepared to greet the new delegates, Chen reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe, struggling to maintain colonies on a few dozen worlds. Now they were the center of a growing alliance of species who had learned the same lesson the hegemony had learned the hard way. Never underestimate the species that views the impossible as merely inconvenient. The aliens had declared war on Earth, expecting to find a primitive world ripe for conquest. Instead, they had awakened something that the galaxy would spend centuries trying to understand: humanity's absolute refusal to accept defeat, combined with their terrifying ability to turn any situation to their advantage. The war had lasted 72 hours. The peace that followed would last for generations, and throughout the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, the same warning was passed down from elder to youngling. Be careful who you pick a fight with. Some species fight until they win. Humans fight until their enemies become their friends, and somehow, that's even more dangerous. The message was clear, transmitted across star systems and civilizations. Earth was under human protection. And humans, as the galaxy had learned, protected what was theirs with a creativity and determination that bordered on the supernatural. They had declared war on Earth. No one had warned them what humans really were. Now everyone knew. The end